The National Desk, America's News, now.
On day 3 of the DNC, Governor Tim Walz accepting his nomination as the first polls come in for each respective VP pick. Which team has the edge as the campaigns head for the final stretch? The robust job numbers of the last year don't appear to be accurate. Just ahead, why this negative labor revision could be a good thing for the economy. And as more smokers turn to vaping, new concerns about those who may be indulging in both at the same time. Just how much it elevates your risk of getting lung cancer. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Right now, night 3 of the Democratic National Convention getting underway. Tonight, the candidate for vice president will give the biggest speech of his career, following other memorable speeches from some of the biggest leaders in the party. Our Christine Frizzell has been keeping us up to speed this entire week. She's live inside the United Center with what we can expect. Christine?
Yeah, Mira, let's remember, this is someone who is largely unknown outside of Minnesota. Well, tonight we expect we will learn a lot more about the man Kamala Harris calls Coach Walz, a former football coach, social studies teacher, congressman, and current governor, set to accept his party's nomination for vice president following a night that was extremely electric and a little late. From the former First Lady, a call to action.
Don't just sit around and complain. Do something.
Former President Barack Obama firing up the crowd about his support for Kamala Harris and his disdain for Donald Trump.
We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse.
Tonight, another former president, Bill Clinton, will address the crowd as well, along with former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. The main event, though, vice presidential candidate Tim Walz appearing before what is likely the biggest audience of his career, expected to hit upon the theme of the evening, a fight for our freedoms.
I don't need you in our exam room. I don't need you telling me which books to read, and you can sure stay the hell out of our bedroom. So that's it.
Many watching to see if Governor Walz will address a slew of criticism he's faced since catapulting into the national spotlight, including regarding this statement he made about he and his wife's fertility struggles.
Thank God for IVF. My wife and I have 2 beautiful children.
His wife, Gwen, clarified they actually used a treatment called intrauterine insemination, or IUI, which was not in danger of being banned. Some, including 50 GOP veterans in Congress, writing a letter on Trump campaign letterhead, accusing Walz of making egregious misrepresentations about his military record after he walked back this statement.
And we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Now, I should say at least 18 Democrats in Congress, also veterans, have defended Tim Walz's 24 years in the Army National Guard. This is just part of the biography we expect to learn a lot more tonight about. Meanwhile, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were in North Carolina today, focusing on national security. Amira?
Yeah, a lot of people waiting to hear from Walz, hoping that he'll set the record straight and really just introduce himself to America. And Christine, what else are we expecting to hear tonight?
Yeah, there is a whole lot, Amira, on the agenda. Of course, themes like Project 2025, which is something that Democrats think Trump is behind and is bad for the country. We expect to hear a lot more about reproductive rights. I can confirm I heard John Legend warming up here for a performance a little while ago. And then we're going to hear from a lot of lawmakers, including Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. This is someone who was on the very small team of putting together that bipartisan border bill that didn't end up passing. He's going to sort of flip the script here and say, we put together some of the toughest legislation on the border. There was approval from a Republican, and Donald Trump told Republicans not to vote for it because it was a political benefit for him if the border was still chaotic. So we're going to hear a lot about that tonight.
All right. Many people looking forward. Thank you very much, Christine Frizzell, live from Chicago at the United Center. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz appears to be making a better impression on Americans than Senator J.D. Vance. In a new Associated Press poll, about 36% of adults said that they had a favorable view of Walz, when compared to 27% of respondents who said they had a favorable view of Vance. 44% said they had an unfavorable view of him. In North Carolina, Donald Trump and running mate J.D. Vance held a rally in Asheboro. This was President Trump's first outdoor rally since he survived an assassination attempt last month. Trump's podium was surrounded by bulletproof glass to protect him. According to the Associated Press, storage containers were stacked around the perimeter of the rally to block sight lines. Snipers were also reportedly positioned on roofs at the rally. Now, Trump did leave the protected area to check on a woman who fainted during his speech. He walked down to the woman as she was being helped by medical staff and gave her a hug before returning to the podium, where he took every chance to call out his Democratic opponent.
And she'll be worse than Biden because he wasn't really a believer, but she's a radical left believer. She ruined San Francisco. She ruined California. And if she gets in, our country doesn't have a chance.
After more than 2 months on the run, murder suspect Joshua Zimmerman was apprehended this morning in Chicago. Zimmerman escaped the DeSoto County Circuit Court building in Mississippi on June 14th. United States Marshals, with the help of Chicago SWAT teams, cornered him at an eatery last night. And after an overnight standoff, he was finally taken into custody. Zimmerman is wanted for a murder of a woman in Houston in 2023 and by authorities in Mississippi on attempted murder and armed robbery charges. A Washington, D.C. area elementary school teacher in jail tonight instead of in the classroom preparing to welcome kids back to school. That teacher placed on leave after the school district learned she had been arrested in connection with the death of a Washington, D.C. man found dead as a result of using fentanyl. The National Desk's Rebecca Turco is in Maryland's Montgomery County with more.
Montgomery County first grade teacher is accused of distributing narcotics as police investigate the death of a man who overdosed on fentanyl.
That is gut-wrenching.
It's something Michelle Bowles and other parents we caught up with are wrapping their heads around.
Not to say that teachers are not human, but you have children that you are responsible for. You are the leader in their eyes, and to be a part of something like that is just beyond me. It's disgusting.
According to police, 34-year-old Sarah Magid had been in contact with the victim, who died in D.C. in March. Officers arrested her after police and DEA special agents searched her home yesterday. Now, the Dr. Charles R. Drew elementary teacher is facing a slew of drug charges.
I have chills just hearing it. It really does concern me. You're talking about babies. That first grade teacher, that's hard.
Police haven't told us what specific evidence they found. Tonight, we learned this isn't Magid's first run-in with the law. Court records show she was arrested for impaired driving in 2020 and 2010. She pleaded guilty both times, once for driving impaired by a controlled substance, and the other time for driving drunk.
It's extremely concerning.
Janice Zink-Sartucci with the Parents Coalition of Montgomery County wants the district to be more upfront here.
It's very concerning to hear that you have someone in a classroom with little kids who has gotten in this kind of situation, but it's also more concerning when you see that the person had a prior arrest.
And that teacher is being held without bond. She's due back in court next month. And if found guilty, she faces up to 60 years behind bars. Over $5 million worth of methamphetamine disguised as watermelons has been seized at the border. You're looking at a picture of it right now. Border Patrol says these fake meth watermelons were taken from a truck trying to cross over the border in California. Authorities say there were over 1,200 of these packages. They weigh a total of about 4,500 pounds. The driver, we understand, was arrested. Earlier this month, more than 500 packages of meth were found in a crate of celery worth at least $750,000. Meantime, attorneys general from 15 states, led by Kansas AG Chris Kobach are suing the Biden-Harris administration to block an expansion of the taxpayer-funded Affordable Care Act to illegal migrants. This includes recipients of the government-backed health exchange who qualified under DACA, a program created by executive order in 2012 by President Obama. A new rule created by the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services would allow foreign nationals to access the ACA coverage beginning in November. A rule that would have made it easier for someone to quit their job and work for a competitor, it has been blocked by a federal judge in Texas. He says the rule would cause irreparable harm, and the Federal Trade Commission exceeded its authority in making it. That means the FTC won't be able to enforce its rule, which was set to go into effect on September 4th, but the issue could still end up at the U.S. Supreme Court. Ukrainian troops continue their offensive in western Russia, taking out major bridges to cut off supply routes. Russian officials say 45 drones were downed overnight, including 11 right near Moscow. Moscow's mayor saying that none of their drones hit targets, and it was one of the biggest attempted drone attacks on the city since the war began. President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke today to discuss hostage and ceasefire negotiations. It comes as Secretary of State Antony Blinken left the Middle East without any major breakthrough in a deal. Blinken warned that time is of the essence after meeting with mediating countries Qatar and Egypt yesterday. Blinken says the focus now turns to trying to get Hamas to agree to a deal, as Israel has reportedly accepted a proposal to fill in the alleged gaps there. However, Hamas has blamed Israel for creating new demands. While on Israel's northern border, Hezbollah launched more than 50 rockets today, hitting several private homes in the Israeli-annexed Golan Heights. Hezbollah confirms the attack was in response to a Tuesday strike by Israel in Lebanon that killed 1 and injured 19 others. For over 10 months, Israel and Hezbollah have shared near daily strikes with more than 9,000 separate attacks between the two since the beginning of the Israel-Hamas war. Longtime New Jersey Rep Bill Pascrell Jr. has died. His family announced that death on social media. He was 87 years old. The family did not reveal a cause of death, but the congressman had been in the hospital recently. He is the second New Jersey representative to die in office this year. Coming up, the strength of the job market over the past year has been way different than originally thought. How much job growth totals were revised? Then the negative effect that most members of Gen Z now believe social media is having on them, according to a new study. And later, over 100 roosters rescued from a Washington cockfighting operation, what these animals now need from the community. The U.S. job market over the past year was not as hot as previously indicated. According to new data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there were 818,000 fewer jobs created between March of 2022 and March of 2023. This is a bigger revision than experts were anticipating, and it's the largest downward revision seen since 2009. To put that into perspective, monthly job growth totals were actually about 30% lower than were initially reported. The good news, however, is that this makes it more likely the Fed will cut rates at their next meeting in September. Although these estimates released by the Labor Department today are still preliminary and won't be finalized until February of 2025. Accordingly, a large amount of Americans are searching for jobs. According to an annual New York Federal Reserve survey, about 28% of respondents say they are job hunting at the moment, and that is the highest percentage in 10 years, up from just over 19% a year ago. This poll included both unemployed and employed individuals. The current unemployment rate is 4.3%. Ford is shifting its EV strategy to focus on affordable cars with longer ranges. The automaker is postponing production of an all-electric pickup truck at a new Tennessee plant. It's also planning to develop a new hybrid SUV instead of an electric one. Ford's EV production will continue at a slower pace. The CFO said this change will improve profitability. Third-party candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has announced a major speech on Friday in Phoenix, Arizona. While his campaign did not say what the focus of the address will be, people are speculating he may drop out of the race and possibly endorse Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. Earlier this week, Kennedy's running mate Nicole Shanahan suggested on a podcast that this was one of their two possible options as the election nears. Gen Z also developing strong opinions on social media. A new report showing young adults concerned about the negative impact of these apps, particularly when it comes to mental health. The National Desk's Angela Brown breaking down the new findings.
So how much time do teens spend on social media? Nearly 5 hours, according to a report from the American Psychological Association.
On an average, the Gen Zers are spending almost 5 hours a day on social media. And here's the kicker. They report that after like 35, 40 minutes, they can feel the negativity. They can feel the negative energy.
And many believe their time scrolling is impacting their mental health. A new study conducted by Tarker Research found 3 in 4 Gen Zers blame social media for their mental health decline. The Surgeon General is calling for health warnings on social media for younger users.
We're in the middle of a youth mental health crisis in America. I've said before that this is the defining public health challenge of our time. And I'm very concerned that social media has become an important contributor to the pain and the struggles that many of our young people are facing.
This report from the American Psychological Association found that 41% of teens with the highest social media use rate their overall mental health as poor or very poor. Dr. Lee Richardson, the founder of the Brain Performance Center.
I think that social media has turned us into a comparative society. And anytime you compare, you have a winner and you have a loser.
But it's not all negative news. The same Tarker Research survey found while many associate platforms with negative emotions, 80% claim they also associate social media with a positive impact on their mood. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Angela, thank you. Search and rescue divers are still searching for one person from the wreckage of that yacht that sunk off the coast of Sicily. 5 bodies have now been recovered, including British billionaire Mike Lynch and his daughter. It comes as 6 people were initially unaccounted for after the yacht was sunk when a waterspout struck the vessel on Monday. 15 people escaped in a lifeboat when that boat sunk. And in your health alert, vaping as a replacement for cigarettes. If you recently took up vaping to try and quit smoking, a new study says you may want to reconsider that. Medical reporter Liz Bonas sharing new research that shows an alarming link to lung cancer.
Hey there, everybody. This new study shows that vaping and smoking together increases lung cancer risk fourfold. It is one of the first to provide evidence that smoking in combination with vaping increases cancer risk compared to smoking alone. It's published in the Journal of Oncology Research and Therapy. I spoke to Dr. Omar Hassan, a pulmonologist with Ohio's Tri-Health, to share why it is so important that people know about this additional risk.
We do know that there's higher risk of inflammation with vaping, the aerosolized liquid, the flavorings, the metals. It's not a safe alternative to cigarette smoke.
Researchers in this study analyzed cigarette smoking and use of electronic cigarettes, or also known as vaping, in more than 4,000 people. Now, this was compared to a control group of more than 27,000 people without lung cancer. Researchers found that vaping combined with cigarette smoking was 8 times more common in people with lung cancer compared to the control group. And the risk of developing lung cancer was 4 times higher among people who combined vaping and smoking compared to those who only smoked. So here's some ideas for support if you want to quit either of these.
There's a few prescription medicines that patients do qualify for. There's always nicotine replacement therapy with patches and gum. That works for a lot of folks. There's cognitive behavioral therapy, where we understand the physiology of addiction and how it affects our behavioral patterns. A lot of folks do tend to respond to that as well.
Now, since many people switch to vaping, sometimes to quit smoking traditional cigarettes, researchers say it's important to note that there's still a lot we don't know about the flavorings and nicotine doses in vaping products. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Liz, thank you. Coming up, the illnesses your kids are most likely to get as they head back to school and the best ways to protect them. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we begin with illnesses kids are likely to get as they head back to school.
For sure after Labor Day, or probably even before Labor Day, to start seeing an influx of just some strep throats, stomach bug questions, things that kids need to help just get over the stomach bug, pink eye, eye drops and eye ointments. So those are some things that we will see. Yes, we will see an influx, and we are prepared.
Manny also says to look out for any rashes in your child's mouth or on their hands and feet. That could be an indication of hand, foot, and mouth disease. Also, be sure to regularly check for fevers and symptoms that last more than 24 hours. The best way to prevent these contagious ailments is to keep your hands washed, use disinfectant wipes and liquids as necessary, and reduce levels of stress while providing good nutrition and sleep routines.
35-year-old Deptiba Hill says she originally went to the doctor in April for stomach pains, but after getting tested, she found out she had end-stage renal disease, a severe form of kidney failure. Both her kidneys shrunk to half their size.
And I was in ICU for 2 days and then put under the observation. for almost 12 days in Cochamatian Hospital, San Jose.
Her condition now requires her to undergo dialysis for 9 hours a day, 7 days a week. Bahil is on a work visa and is originally from India. She's reaching out beyond the Bay Area, hoping the Central Valley's Indian population might lead to a match and a kidney transplant before it's too late.
To be honest, like giving a kidney to someone is like giving a life. It's the most blessed thing anyone could do in this world.
It's time to rescue a rooster.
These roosters have been trained. Many of them have been fought. You can't house them together.
There's 120 roosters in Roy that Kate Cirklovich, executive director of Heartwood Haven, says need a forever home. The flock was taken when Pierce County deputies recently uncovered a cockfighting operation. Kate said this has become the largest rescue of roosters in state history.
The ideal candidate would be somebody who has like a small hobby farm or maybe even a big hobby farm, who has some hens and a nice coop and just doesn't have a rooster to add that lovely crow in the morning.
When we come back, the big change in travel patterns expected this Labor Day and the most popular destinations. Many Americans are getting ready to hit the road for the upcoming holiday. According to AAA, domestic travel bookings for Labor Day weekend are 9% higher when compared to 2023. And taking a look at the top U.S. destinations this year, Seattle is at the top of that list. Other popular places on AAA's list: New York, Boston, Denver, Anchorage, and Orlando. As for people heading out of town by car, well, gas prices are about 30 cents less expensive when compared to this time last year. So that is always welcome news for those fans of road trips out there. That does it for this edition of the National Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening for more coverage on the third night of the Democratic National Convention. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching and have a great night.